going to introduce myself and Mike. So I'm Chris Rawlings, the CEO and founder of Judolaunch, and also the founder of a spinal health brand online, whose major channel is Amazon, that I started while motorcycling around New Zealand a couple of years back and has since grown to a 7-figure empire. Mike is going to be interviewing me about the steps to a successful launch of a new product. And then I'm going to be flipping the script and interviewing him about how to keep sales rolling in once that launch is successful and out into the world. So Mike is also the founder of a successful brand in the pet space, and also the founder of PPC Entourage, which is the best PPC automation software on the market right now. So we thought that this was a really good fusion, that getting the launch piece and then getting the continued sales piece, that's pretty much the whole story right there, to add an insane amount of value to you guys. So this is going to be a very casual chat, but don't let that fool you, because there are a lot of gems that we're going to release in this chat based on Mike and my own expertise in our respective fields. So we're going to kick it off. I'm going to hand the torch over to Mike, and he's going to ask me a couple questions about how to run a successful launch and prepare for a successful launch. And then 20 minutes in, we'll flip the script. So it's all you, Mike.
Cool, Chris. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. I am excited about this call. And like Chris said, this is called the sticky launch. So Chris is going to be talking about how to launch a product, how to prepare for a launch, and the things you need to know before you launch. This way it's successful from the get-go. And then I'm going to tell you how to stick the landing using PPC and any kind of outside Facebook traffic, and also headline search ads and stuff like that, so that you can stick the landing and stay there for a long period of time. So once again, guys, thanks so much for having us or being with us today. And Chris, I'm going to start with a couple of questions about what are the most important things to know and do before a launch so that you can set yourself up for success.
Word. That's a big question there. So I'll tackle that piece by piece. I think so. Just to start off, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of launches, nearing the thousands at this point. And by this time, I've seen a lot of patterns evolve in what constitutes a sticky launch and what constitutes a non-sticky launch. Because in full transparency here, when a seller runs a launch, they can get ranking, they can get sales rolling, but some of them keep them rolling and some of them don't. So that's kind of the point of this webinar. And it's always gratifying to me to see sellers that stick that landing, as you said, Mike, to steal your phrase, rather than ones that see temporary success and then fall back down. And there's really just a handful of things that you need to take into consideration in order to have that sticky launch. And it's really simple and straightforward. The amazing thing is that most sellers don't do it, even though it's simple. I mean, life is like this. It really is the simple things that create success. And still, even though it's easy and simple to do, most people don't do it. So I'm just going to rail through them one by one. There's just a couple of them. And you can interrupt me anytime you want, Mike, because you're representing the viewers here. So sure. If a question comes up or I'm diving too deep or whatever, let me know. So basically, when you're preparing for a launch, what it comes down to is I would say the biggest mistake that sellers make is trying to rush things. Not to say that you can't move fast, but I think it was George Washington, but somebody can correct me on that in the comments if I'm wrong, that said, give me an hour to cut down a tree and I'll spend 50 minutes sharpening my axe. Launches are like that. You want to spend a lot of time and effort sharpening your axe before you execute. And if you don't, you will get results, but they'll be temporary and they won't be quote unquote sticky, as Mike said. So some of those are the number one thing that I'll brush over, because this is a core philosophy, that it's not like a quick hack that you can change. But I feel the need to say it because it's something that at least half of sellers get wrong, is you really have to have a good product, because you can pay for as many reviews as you want. You can do as many promotions as you want and continue to, try ranking and paying for visibility as much as you want. But when the experience of the customer for your product is not stellar, you're not going to stay up there, because that will get out no matter what. So the core product has to be good. And if you're just so focused on nickel and diming your supplier that you're not paying for like the top quality product in your space, it's not going to pay off in the long term. So I'm not going to dwell on that. I know that's not a sexy, cool hack, and we're going to get into some sexy stuff, don't worry. But I had to say that because it's, like I said, it's something that a huge number of sellers get wrong. So that's the core, the foundation. You've got a great product, right? And a great product means not only quality, but you want something that's already selling. That's the whole game when it comes to Amazon. We're not creating, let's be honest here, we're not creating like revolutionary new products, most of us. I may be wrong. Some of you might have some fucking revolutionary stuff. I know for my brand that has been very successful, nothing was revolutionary about it. It was super boring. All we did was take products that sell very high volume that I had personal experience in, made them better with small design changes, and then sold that. So the product that you're choosing has got to be high volume sales so that you validate the market, and it's got to be the best on the market.
Hey, Chris, can you talk about how you made your product better? Was it better ingredients? Was it better packaging? Like the quantity, that kind of stuff? What did you do to make it better?
You hit on a hack there, actually, that I do want to say. So this is something that I had my virtual assistant do from the very get-go, and she still does for new product launches. So we look at the top competitors, the top sellers for the main keyword on that product, and parse hundreds of reviews, mostly the negative ones, because those are honest. Unless you're in a very competitive space like supplements, and you'll get fake negative reviews. That sucks. But most of those are going to be very honest, and you will spot patterns. I guarantee you will spot patterns. People will say, oh, this is a great product, but it makes me bloaty and fart a lot. Or they'll say, this is a great product, but it's too big. It doesn't fit in my car. Or blah. And you'll see this pattern. And if you solve just that one problem by a simple design change, by adding an ingredient that makes it not bloaty and you not fart a lot, or by making it a little bit smaller so that it fits in a car seat, or whatever that is, you're going to be in an exponentially better position to have a successful long-term product in the future. So I'm glad you asked that, dude. That's a hack that I love. I literally just tell my VA, go through all of the reviews, 3 stars and under, and write down, keep a spreadsheet and tick every time you see a new critical feedback. Like add new critical feedbacks, and then the ones that are repeating, you add a tick mark. And then the one with the most tick marks, that's the one feature that I add. And that's it. Simple as that.
I wonder if we have the same VA because it's something similar that we do. We go through the 3-star reviews or lower, and then we come up with a spreadsheet, and then basically look at the reviews, look for patterns, and then solve that problem, and then send that to our supplier to be like, can you make this product with all of these problems solved, so that we know our product is better than the rest. And yeah, like you said, man, that's the most important part of the sticky launch. And it's not sexy, but it's like, if you don't start with a strong foundation and a strong product, then you're starting off in the wrong foot. So definitely great point, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm really glad you asked that question. And yeah, it's not sexy, but that is the most important thing. So yeah, I'm glad we covered that. But also, just one more thing to riff on what you just said, because I think that's another little hack, because it's obvious that you do it. but we did this very consciously, is take advantage of the engineering or the design team that your supplier has. They may not have this if you're working with a small supplier, but larger suppliers will likely have an engineering team or a formula team, whatever space you're in, some kind of like core design team within their staff. And you can basically use them for free.
Free work.
Which is amazing. It's free. It's free engineering, free formulation, like free researchers. So you just say, this is what we need, to place that next $30,000 order with you or whatever, make it happen.
Yeah.
And, I didn't even realize you could do that until we just started doing it. So
they want it to be just as sticky as you want it to be, right? Because then you're going to be around for a long period of time. You're going to be they're going to be purchasing that stuff for a long period of time. And at the very least, I mean, when we've done that, we've had them design it, and then the very most expensive thing we've had to do is pay for a mold. And typically that's between $3,000 and $4,000. But we see that as a great investment, because then our competition doesn't have that mold, right? And then that factory isn't going to let our competition, hopefully not let our competition use that mold. And it's definitely a little bit of a differentiating factor, and it's a great way to set yourself apart from the competition.
Totally. I 100% agree with that. Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So we covered that foundation. So we don't dwell on that. We'll move away so this doesn't become a sourcing webinar. So once you've got that, then it really comes down to making sure that the digital representation of your actual physical product displays it in the best possible way to two audiences. One is the robots and the other is the human beings. So let's start with the human beings. So, and I'll tell you what I mean by robots when we get to it. So for the humans, the number one thing that they see, that their emotional and logical experience of your product starts with one thing before they buy it. And that's all that matters, is before they buy it, because once they buy it, it's all over. So it starts with one thing, and that is your one main image. Because when you're scrolling, when you search for something that you need, if I search for Japanese teacups on Amazon, I'm scrolling really fast. And I actually used to watch people buying stuff on Amazon like a creep, like behind them, like in cafes. Like I literally would just see people shopping on Amazon, and I would stop and I would just look and I would observe how they shop. And this is what they do. They search and they don't read a single word. They don't read a single word. They see only pictures. Like their mind is scrolling through something that gives them a little hit of dopamine, or a little like tweak to their brain, something that they like on the surface, and then they click and then they read the words. So if you don't have the right number one main image, you don't even get the click. You never even get to the whole point where you're spending all this time doing keyword optimization and sales techniques and all of that stuff, because nobody is clicking you. So that's literally the most important thing over everything else.
In your opinion, so the main image is number one thing, and they get that hit of dopamine. When do they combine that and get another hit of dopamine? When they see the reviews, is that another hit of dopamine where they combine the picture that looks good and the reviews that look good, and then boom, this is something I have to click on? Is that the recipe, you think, that goes through people's minds?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a whole journey. So they see that the image that tweaks them a little bit, then they might take the time to read just maybe the title. And then if they're hooked enough by that emotionally, that's when you're closing the deal when it comes to the content. And we're talking to humans here. We're not talking about algorithms. We're talking about human beings at this point. So once you get them on there, then it's about speaking to that pain or that passion that they have for that thing. So the reason that they're there is they're either experiencing some type of pain, however small or large, or some type of love or passion for a thing or a space, or a category or a person or a dog. And that's what you want to speak to. You don't want to we're not talking about features. We're not even talking about direct benefits. We're talking about the final benefit. So if we're selling garlic presses, right? The problem isn't actually that the guy wants to chop up some garlic. That's what it would seem like. You'd seem like, chops garlic really well. Well, that's really not what you're solving. You're solving the fact that normally when this guy is chopping garlic, he's mushing it with the side of a knife and then getting his hands really sticky. And then he can't touch anybody in the kitchen for the rest of the time that he's cooking because his hands are all sticky with garlic. That's the problem. And he wants to touch his wife while he cooks, and now he can't. That's the problem. It's not the fact that this garlic needs to be chopped up. It's the fact that this guy is uncomfortable and he's disconnected from people. Like, do you see what I mean? It's a very big difference between what the problem appears to be and what the pain that the person is actually feeling is. And that's one thing that you rarely ever see on these listings, because everyone is so obsessed with keyword optimization and, keyword stuffing and like algorithm optimization. But at the end of the day, the person reading your listing who's clicking the button to buy is a human being, not an algorithm or a robot. It's not the A9 algorithm that's clicking the button buy now. It's a person. So if you speak to them in the right way, that's how you get them to click the buy now button, not by keyword stuffing. But that's important too. We're about to cover that. I know we're running a little bit behind, so I'm just going to take an extra 5 minutes, Mike, just because.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I'm only like halfway through this. So we're talking about speaking to the end need. In order to get to that end need, you just keep asking why like 5 times. So in the example that I just said, like the guy needs to chop garlic. Why? Because, garlic needs to be chopped before it can be cooked. Well, or no, it's because the guy doesn't want to chop the garlic with a knife. Well, why? Well, because when he chops garlic with a knife, it gets his hands sticky and that makes him upset. Well, why? Because when his hands are sticky, he can't touch anybody or can't hug his wife while he's cooking. And that's how you get like to the very core problem. That's just one little example. But any product you can do, you ask that question 5 times as a general rule, will bring you to the core pain, the real pain that person is feeling. And that's what you want to speak to. Then you can go into the benefits of the product in general, and then you can go into the features of logically why it's better. But first, you have to hook them emotionally. Once you get that emotional hook, they want to buy it. They're just looking for an excuse logically to do it. So they want it already once you speak to that pain. Then once you put in those features, it also, rotates every time you cut, unlike other garlic presses. It also has like a triple blade, unlike just the double blade of other garlic presses. Then those features allow them to rationalize to themselves why they're buying it, even though the real reason is you spoke to their emotional pain in the first place. So that's the key when it comes to talking to the human beings. And this is all just so that we can optimize your conversion rate and the quality of your listing and product before a launch to make it successful. All of this plays into that. So that's the human being. Then when it comes to the robots, now we're speaking to algorithms. And the key to that is making sure that you elegantly place these keywords in your listing in a way that's not awkward and doesn't take from the way that you're communicating to people. And this is the one thing that I think I see more and more, because everybody's always looking for that hack, and people end up spending like 90% of their energy on algorithm optimization and only 10% of their energy on the actual human side or the sales side of things, which is why I wanted to like focus more on the human aspect here. But when you're adding keywords to the listing, first of all, you want to do it in an elegant way. I mean, I see listings where it's just so obvious. They're just in the most awkward, weird ways, like just cramming keywords together. And when I open that up, like as a person reading that listing, I'm like, it's just confusing. And it doesn't give me any good feeling, or it doesn't speak to my pain at all. I'm just like, what the fuck is this? So you can get, as many long tail keywords as you want in there to pick up more visibility. But if the people that are coming to it, you're not speaking to their pain, you're going to just tank your conversion rate. And that when you take your conversion rate, you're much less likely to have a sticky launch. Having a high conversion rate is probably the number one most important thing for sticking the landing of your launch. Everything that we're talking about now is about increasing your conversion rate or your click-through rate, one or the other. So that's that. We could dig in, for hours on actually how to identify those keywords. We are going to give a little handout, just quick summary of this entire webinar after this to all participants of the webinar. So you guys will be able to get that and review that after this is over, since we don't have a huge amount of time. Yeah. But since we're already over the 20 minutes on my part, I think that we should flip the script and talk about how to keep sales rolling in once you have that successful launch. And I can ask you a couple of questions, Mike, if you're cool with that.
Sure. Yeah, and guys, we're going to have time later for questions, because I know even I have a ton of questions for Chris right now. I'm like chomping at the bit. So I'm sure we'll have a great Q&A section later on during the presentation. But yeah, I'm ready, Chris. Bring it.
Sweet, man. Right on. Well, actually, so since we're fresh off how to prepare for a successful launch with conversion rate, I'll just ask you just as broad a question as you asked me. And that's, what's your strategy? Being that you're the expert in the subject, what's your strategy for keeping sales rolling in once you're already ranking and getting that visibility after a successful launch?
Great question. So I am not going to dive into the exact campaign that you can set up, because that's very much step by step. And that's going to be included in the PDF that we give you guys at the end of this presentation. It's going to tell you how to set up the campaign and the bid prices and what type of campaign and all that stuff. What I'm more interested in is how to stick the landing on specific search terms and doing the research before you decide on the search terms that you're going to launch for, to make sure that these are search terms that A, connect well to your audience. Have you had a sale for these search terms already? If so, what is the conversion percentage? What is the CTR percentage? How many impressions is that particular search term getting? And all of this is like golden nugget information that you can find inside of your search term report. That I know, like you said, Chris, 90% of sellers are doing one thing. I know that 90% of sellers are probably not looking at search term reports, which is like where all of the freaking gold is. Inside of the search term reports, you're going to get search terms that have connected well with your audience. There's already been a sale, already been a conversion. And you're going to be able to see how many times that connected well with your audience, and also how many impressions overall that particular search term is getting inside of one of your campaigns. If you take that knowledge and that data, now keep in mind, that's just for your own PPC campaign. You can extrapolate that out across like probably 100 times, because there's millions of people searching for products on Amazon, and you can get a good idea as to what the search volume is for that particular search term. And now you know that you've already connected well to that search term. It has a ton of volume. That's when you want to dig in and see, okay, where am I located in the algorithm for this particular search term? Because I know it connects, and I want to be number one, and I want to stick the landing. All right, so as soon as you have your listing together, you have your images together, your copy speaks to the value, and it draws people in emotionally, and you know that you have a good product with a good conversion percentage for that particular search term, then go ahead and do step 2 of the research, which is asking yourself, where am I? Where am I in Amazon land for this particular search term? Am I on page 2? Am I on page 3? Am I on the bottom of page 1? And is it worth it to get my butt up towards the top of page 1? And Chris, this is a question I actually wanted to flip the script again and ask you. Our personal strategy right now is, if we're on the bottom of page 1 for a search term that we really want to be towards the top, how is that different from if we're on page 2 or 3 in terms of how many units we have to launch to get to that top position for that search term?
Yeah, dude, that's actually an excellent question. Yeah, if you want to flip the script, I'll answer that real quick. So the difference between the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 1 is basically the same as the difference as the bottom of page 1 and page 40. So it after page 1, it's like they say the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google search results. Well, it's the same with Amazon. Like
Okay.
nobody is paging over. So like your first step is to run a launch to get to page 1. And usually it takes running another launch to climb page 1. Once you're on page 1, you're in the game. If you're not in page 1, you're not even in the game. It's just about getting to page 1. So it's no matter where you are, not on page 1, it's going to be about the same number of units to get to page 1. But once you're on page 1, you need to launch. You need to run a launch based on the number of units that those top sellers in the space that you're looking to get are selling. So if they're doing 60 units a day, 100 units a day, you want to do a launch that matches that. If they're only doing 15 units a day, 25 units a day, then you want to do a launch that matches or exceeds, really. You want to exceed that. And you want to do that, run a launch that does that over a period of 5 to 10 days. 7 days is what we see as the optimal. And that's actually what I run with my own brand.
Cool.
So there's the short answer.
It sounds like I made an incorrect assumption on that. If you're already on the first page, you don't have to launch as much because you're already getting some sales from being on the first page. But it sounds like you still have to be super aggressive because the first page is like its own animal, its own beast, and you still have to be aggressive to get to the first position, which is the ultimate goal. Cool.
100%.
So, I mean, it's for me, the way I think of it as there's keywords that are like directly connected to what I'm selling, that every one of my competition is probably going after those keywords and search terms. And there's going to be other search terms that's going to be less competitive. And that's why I love to dig into the search term report. And if we have time, I'll go into that later inside of Entourage. Because I know everyone knows that, if you're selling a garlic press, going after garlic press would be phenomenal. First spot in garlic press would be great. It may be an expensive thing for you to do initially because you may have to push hundreds and hundreds of units to get to that first position. Whereas if you had another search term that's a little bit more long tail and you're just starting off and you want to get some quick wins and you want to build a nice foundation, you can dig into the search term report and find something like garlic press mincer or something like that. That instead of like launching 1,000 units, maybe you only have to launch 100 units, and then you start from there, and then that has good volume, and then you build upon that success slowly over time. Build it up with PPC as well, and some of the other strategies that we're going to cover, and then go from there. And that's currently what we're doing. We're actually looking at our top 10 products, and we're looking at the top 5 to 10 search terms. And we know the main ones already. We know that there's high competition there, but we're looking at the ones where we know we could be on page 1 in a second, and it won't cost us a ton of money in terms of how many units we have to give away just to get there. Okay, so once again, in your search term report, it will tell you your CTR percentage, and that's a really important thing to look at because that's how closely connected that search term is and how relevant that search term is to what you're selling. So if you have a high CTR percentage, then that means the person is getting that emotional connection when they see your product and they're clicking on it. And obviously the conversion percentage is equally as important. If it's less than 0.4%, then it may not be the best idea to do a launch, but each search term and each product is a little bit different. If it's a seasoned product that has a lot of reviews, then you may go for it. If it's like a brand new product with no reviews and it's doesn't have that stickiness quite yet, then maybe it's not a good fit right away. And you go for the ones that have a little bit high CTR percentage and higher conversion rate percentages. So definitely look into those things before you launch and preparing for the launch. And Chris, I really like what you said before about it's all about the preparation before the launch. So right now, our strategy is to get the best 5 to 10 search terms, digging into the search term report, looking at the metrics and looking at the numbers, and knowing with good certainty that when we launch for this product, we're going to be high up on page 1. Also keep in mind, do like a little research beforehand and look at the other products that are on that page. Because oftentimes when you put in a search term, there might be other things on there and it's not exactly what you're selling. And if you get to the top, like, for garlic press, like, some other cooking utensil, what's another, like a spatula or something like that. make sure that you're.
Let me ask you, Mike, just because this is a question in my mind. I'm thinking maybe our audience might be thinking the same thing. And you covered this to a certain degree, but if you were to summarize it, when you say pick the top 5 search terms from that report, how do you know that you picked the actual top 5? Because there's so many different metrics that it gives you in that report. You have the CTR, like you said, then you have the ACOS. You have the total impressions. There's so many things that it just confuses the shit out of me when I read that report.
The first thing I look at is impressions. I want to go after the ones that have the most amount of impressions, because if I'm going to invest the money and the resources into launching, I want to make sure that I'm going after a keyword that's worth it, right? I want to stick the landing on something that has a lot of impressions. Next thing I look at is a CTR percentage, because I know that people are going to click on my listing. And then I'll look at orders and conversions, pretty much the same thing, to make sure that it has plenty of orders and it's converting fairly well. The other thing I'll look at, it's really super important, which I don't know if we covered, but making sure that this search term is indexed is really important too before you commit to a launch. So simply typing the ASIN and the search term into Amazon search bar, you can see it'll either say 0 results or your product will show. If it says 0 results, then you have to go through the process of getting indexed first. Chris, would you agree with this? Before you do the launch, you should definitely get indexed for that search term and keyword?
Yes, definitely. If you're not being indexed, that means that you haven't optimized the listing front end or back end enough to actually do a successful proper launch. That's 100% true.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just to summarize that up, I would look at impressions first and be like, that's kind of like my emotional appeal. I'm like, I want to be first for that, right? Impressions first, CTR percentage, orders and conversions. And then I'll take a look at the search term and be like, is this, connected to what I'm selling? There's some times in the search term report that it's not a direct connection. And it kind of makes me question whether or not it's a good fit for what I'm trying to launch. Because this is an investment. We want to make sure that the connection is good. That's when I'll click on the search term. On Entourage, you can do that. It'll open up the page in Amazon, and you can see the other products below it to see if it's a good fit or see if your competitors are up there. Because if they're up there, they've stuck the landing. Why can't I stick the landing? I already know it's got a lot of impressions, and there's some good orders and good sales. The point is, digging into the search term report before you do a launch is probably the most important thing. And then I'm going to tell you our PPC strategy, because obviously we've dug into the search term report, which is from PPC. We're going to the sales you make on PPC is going to give you the information in the search term report. But now we want to supplement that launch with a solid PPC strategy, because my personal philosophy is to swarm the competition. It's to make sure that they have no other choices other than purchasing my product. And to do that, you have the headline search ad. You have the top row of the organic search, which is ideally where you want to be. Before that, obviously, you have the headline search, sponsored products. They got rid of the right rail, but then you have the organic listing, organic results right at the top there. And then also you have product display. So I would definitely invest in headline search ads, and I'm gonna outline that in the PDF document that we sent you there. But let's go into the product. How much time do we have here? 107?
We've got another just under 10 minutes before we have the official close, and then casual chat after.
Okay, cool. All right. So the sponsored products strategy. Like I said before, you're going to find a keyword that you're going after. You're then going to do research inside of your existing campaigns on that keyword or search term. You're going to do some research. Do you already have a campaign that's set up for that keyword or search term, and how is it performing? If you don't, then you want to set up a campaign. In this particular example, I would set up a breakout campaign. So you're going to have one keyword or search term that you're going after in a breakout campaign, in a phrase match and an exact match with a fairly aggressive bid. You want to start to do this before the launch process, because you want to start to get some history for this campaign. Maybe if you're doing the research and you've come across 5 to 10 search terms, start the campaign for those search terms in singular and plural. And again, guys, this is all listed out, so you don't have to worry about the specifics. We have this all listed out. But start the campaigns about a week to 2 weeks before you're going to do the launch, and keep them running during the launch. Of course, you can monitor the whole thing to make sure that you're not overspending during the launch or after the launch. Now, our personal goal is to be break even for a keyword or search term. During the launch process, or maybe before the launch process, you may be a little bit above that, 60, 65%. But I see that as an investment. If you've already done the research, the search term is connecting well, you want to make sure that you are swarming the competition, literally swarming the competition. You're getting up to the top with the launch service, and then there's the PPC, and also the headline search ad is right above that. And when you do the headline search ad,
swarming. That's such a good word. Like you're getting them from all angles. Like it's all you see as the consumer. I love that. That's great.
Swarm the competition to stick the landing is where we're going with that. And another way to do that is the headline search ad, right? So if the headline, let's say we're selling garlic press mincer, and that's the search term we're going after. Somebody typed in garlic press mincer, right? So if the headline search ad says garlic press mincer in it, that's a direct connection. Boom. That's like what they're looking for. Of course, if you have a lifestyle photo and then your images of your products, that'd be great. Then they've already seen you. They know it's a good connection. Now the sponsored products, boom, you're right there. And then right below that, and then hopefully you're at the first position at that point already. Now, a lot of people ask me, do you keep PPC running and headline search ads running if you're profitable? You have to be smart about it, because it's not always a good idea to be like spending a ton of money on PPC. You want to make sure that you're profitable at the end of the day. So what we recommend doing is looking at your campaigns or keywords one by one to see if it's a deal or no deal, if it's a good deal for you guys. But that being said, if you start to slip in the first or second or third, fourth, fifth position, then that's when you would turn on your PPC and your headline search ads and start to get that going once again. I'm very aggressive. I keep it on all the time, but some people aren't as aggressive as I am, and they may want to turn off headline search or sponsored products if they're in the first position once they do the launch. But if you want to maintain that stickiness, I recommend staying and being aggressive for a couple of weeks after the launch with the strategies that we're going to outline in this document and the headline search and also the product display, so that you can maintain that stickiness. And once again, getting your campaign set up before the launch will help give that campaign some history so that you can get some favorability with Amazon's algorithm. I think I covered all of that stuff in a nutshell, but Chris, do you have any more questions?
I do. I do want to do a quick check because we got a couple comments that the video was frozen. Can somebody enter a comment just to confirm that you guys are getting video? We've got one user who is pretty upset that he's not getting any video. He's extremely upset. So can somebody comment that the video is coming through and / the audio's okay. Okay, good. It looks like most people are getting the video besides this one user.
Video coming through the whole time, guys?
Yep, it looks like everybody's got it, except for this poor guy, Tej. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Okay, good. Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you this question since we're getting towards the end. I'm going to skip the other question that, you know what, we'll see if we can get to it actually, because I think these are both short. But I do think, just so that everybody can act on this webinar, like right away, immediately, like even now during the webinar or as immediately as soon as it's done, being that you are probably the most qualified out of anyone that I know or can think of to answer this question. What can we do? What can we, the sellers, do, you know, listening to you right now, that takes less than 10 minutes that would have the greatest impact on our PPC campaigns ourselves without spending any money, just spending less than 10 minutes, logging into Seller Central or whatever, logging into whatever and making one change? What would that be?
Budget allocation. So if you have $100 a day that you're spending in PPC and 50% of it is going towards wasted ad spend, what is that doing to your bottom line at the end of the year? So the first step is to optimize all of your campaigns and get rid of all of the junk, because all of your budget's going to the junk. Even if you have like a 40% ACOS, a good percentage of that is going towards crappy search terms and keywords where you can make some money. Why not get that down to 25 and find the stuff that's working really, really well, and then raise the budget on that stuff, so that instead of spending $100 a day on stuff that's like half working and half not working, spend $100 a day on at least most of the stuff that's working. There's going to be some things that don't connect and convert. Obviously, that's just advertising in general. But you have the tools now to optimize out the stuff that isn't working, and many sellers are just setting it and forgetting it. So that's what I would do, like today, like before happy hour.
No, that's great, dude. That's awesome, because I mean, it's so true the way you put it. If you're going to spend $100 a day anyway, why would you just let run, these campaigns that where maybe, like you said, some of the keywords are working, some of them are not? If you're going to spend $100, why not dig for the gold and just make it really work for you? I just never think about it that way, because I always think campaign by campaign. I don't think about my whole daily budget and how to correctly allocate that. So no, I love that. That's awesome. All right, and I'm going to ask you this last one before we officially end this webinar and then just start our Q&A. What is the biggest mistake that you see sellers making in PPC?
The biggest mistake I already mentioned is setting it and forgetting it, and just not worrying about it, and just wasting a lot of money, because that's money that could be going towards many other things. Also, I think the biggest mistake is not going after a broad scope of keywords and search terms, at least initially, to find out those keywords and search terms that are going to connect well to your audience. If you're just focusing in on like 2 or 3 things like garlic press and a couple other things, you're probably going to get the most amount of competition going after the same keyword, spending the most amount with your average cost per click, barely able to scrape by in terms of making a profit. Whereas if you can go a little bit broader, a little bit wider, test the waters with these search terms, not all of them are going to work out. Not even all of them are going to give you impressions. But if you don't test, then how would you know? So definitely start testing out some search terms.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. And I know that I particularly have fallen, well, not even just have fallen into it, I fall into it all the time, of the setting it and forgetting it, and then logging in a month later and being like, holy shit, I spent what? Like 180% average cost of sale?
Oh,
yeah.
No.
So
yeah, I've been there. Not that high. Damn, man. You got to contact us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly. No, I've got my account. So yeah, no, love it. Okay, guys. So we're gonna, in the interest of time, like shut down the official part of this webinar now and start just, we're gonna leave a couple minutes for you guys to ask some questions. So if you guys have a question, now's the time. Type it into the comment chat. Whatever it may be, there's no stupid questions. It could be either for me or Mike, on the launch side or the ongoing sales side. So I'll just leave a few moments.
Hey, Chris,
okay, so,
real quick about the 2-step formula. I have a quick question about that. I know I don't want to take too much time, but.
True. Yep. Absolutely. So I think I would have to dig into that pretty deeply. I know we didn't leave enough time for me to like really finalize it, but what it really comes down to is preparing for the launch, with all of those things that I mentioned and a lot more, to be honest with you, and then executing a proper launch using the right number of units and targeting the right keyword. So the second step of the successful launch process, we unfortunately didn't get to dig into quite enough. But like I said, like Mike said, there will be a handout after this. And it also ties into this question, and I swear this is a real question that just came in. Shad says, can you give a brief overview of Judolaunch? So I'll do that real quickly. Judolaunch is basically a white glove launch service. So you launch your products by sending out a large volume or a significant volume of units of your product to boost conversion and boost keyword ranking for your chosen or your top keywords. And the difference is with Judolaunch is that there's actually human beings behind it moderating the scene. So when you book a launch, somebody reviews that and they'll actually give you recommendations and say, hey, that keyword you chose, that might not be the best one, or hey, your pricing is really high, your conversion will probably be extremely low, and your listing might not be, optimized for that. So, and that's all completely automated. It's booked right on our dashboard, and goes on moderation for a short period of time so that you can get that feedback and get approved or get your launch feedback there, and then it executes your launch. So we launch in the Amazon the US, Amazon UK, Amazon Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Japan, anywhere, all of the major Amazon markets we launch in. So that's that. I won't spend too much more time on that. The Feel Good Lab says, can you unpack the word launch? So by launch, what we mean in the context of this webinar is a new product getting traction on Amazon. That's what we mean by launch. So, you could also consider a launch an existing product that's maybe fallen behind and needs a boost, or a variation of an existing product that needs to be put out, to a new audience. But really, this is like the first step when creating and releasing a new product, is doing a launch. You can either just put it up there and hope for the best, or you can actually execute a launch with a launch strategy, and then worry about ongoing sales once you've already kickstarted the sales. So, all right, we've got Martina says, Judolaunch is working in EU. Oh, that's not a question. That's just a comment. Okay, great. Thank you, Martina. Yeah. So let's close off the question and answer now. I'm not seeing any more questions in the comments box here. If you do have any more, you can feel free to email myself or Mike. I can actually put our emails in the comments box, or you know what? I'll just at least say it right now so that before people start signing off, that they have it. If you want to contact Mike, you can email mike@ppcentourage.com. Very simple. If you want to email me, it's equally as simple, chris@judolaunch.com. And we'd be happy to answer any more questions that you guys have. So now this, guys, is officially the end of our quote unquote official casual webinar. But for those of you that want to hang out and stay on, we're going to do something a little bit special here. And Mike is going to screen share and actually walk us through PPC Entourage, the software, and show us, basically how it works to automate everything that he just told us. The whole process of optimization and review and all of that of your PPC campaigns. PPC Entourage basically automates that process. If I'm saying this, Mike, if I'm butchering this, let me know. So no pressure. This is, like I said, the official end of the webinar. But if you'd like to stay on for less than 5 minutes, Mike is going to just give us a brief screen share and walkthrough. And I see, Mike, you're already sharing your screen there. So I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, guys, I want to show you the process that I was talking about before, digging into your search term report, which is really, really important. And by the way, this is a great thing to do for finding new products as well. We've found countless opportunities by digging into the search term reports, because it actually is telling you what people are looking for. So to do that, this is the PPC Entourage dashboard. You're going to head on over to Power PPC, and there's a tab here called Search Term Expansion. And over here, you're gonna put the ACOS that you want to use. So basically, what this is saying is looking at all of the search terms that have connected to a sale within the range of 0.1 to 100% ACOS. And when I do this whole keyword search term launch process, where I'm looking for the search terms that are connect well, I do use 100 versus something like 30 or 40, because I want to see what's out there. So then you're going to select the product that you want to launch. And if this is just a test account, but you may have like dozens of products over here, and then select all of the campaigns. And we're going to go ahead and click continue. And the results are going to show down below. And this is the nuts and bolts of your search term report. Now you're going to go over here and go back 120 days. And I'm actually going to go back. Actually, it's already set up because I set this up beforehand. It's set up from August until now. So there's plenty of data here, even though this account doesn't have a lot of ad spend. And you're going to see a couple things here. you're going to see that an associated keyword that we had inside of one of our campaigns has the search term metal fingernail file, right? So we put this into our campaign, and somebody on Amazon typed in metal fingernail file, and we made a sale. There were 5 clicks. That's a great connection. Check out this CTR percentage. That's awesome. There was an order. Great. Now, if I had more data, that'd be even better. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the number of impressions, and you can double click on impressions, and you'll see that the term fingernails in this analysis has the most amount of impressions, has 2 clicks, a very average CTR percentage. So I would take that into account. And the average cost per click is relatively cheap, ad spend, all that kind of stuff. So it's made a connection, it's made a sale. I want to go back to metal fingernail file and see how that had 5 clicks, decent amount of impressions, a decent ACOS. Let's click on this here. And what's going to happen is Amazon's going to open up. And what I want to know is, if I launched my product, what would the competition be like? And obviously you can do that and you can see, okay, well, this is what I'd be competing against. You know, here's the first section here, second spot over here. And I am selling a metal, what am I selling here? A steel nail clipper with case set, okay? So is that a good connection? Do I want to be up here? Am I going to stick the landing? And that's the whole point of this, because if you're doing a launch and you're not sticking the landing, then maybe it's just best to do a headline search ad or sponsored products for that particular keyword. Because launching, you know, you're giving away units, and it's a business expense. It's a little bit of a risk, because you want to make sure, and you want to make sure you're going after the right search term and keyword. So for that particular example, now I don't own any of these kits or anything, so I'm just making a quick snap judgment that maybe this isn't the best connection, because I don't see anything that's very, very similar to what I'm selling. So I probably wouldn't do a launch on this particular search term, but there's so many other opportunities down here. So let's double click on impressions again, and let's check out fingernails. All right, now fingernails, cool. Look at this. Okay, so now this is not a direct connection to what we're selling whatsoever. Look at that, NFL fingernails for the Patriots. Yeah, maybe you guys can get some of those for the Super Bowl coming up. Okay, so that's not a direct connection. I would probably not go after that. But let's look at some other things here. Let's see, stainless steel nail clipper. Let's assume this had a lot of impressions and a lot of clicks, and it was a really good connection. Check this out, guys. It's 25% CTR percentage. Of course, there's not a lot of data here, but in your account, you'll probably have a lot more data. If I click on this, then this would probably be a much better connection. And it's a pretty long tail search term. So I would want to investigate this further, and I would want to ask Chris how many units I have to push to get to the #1 spot. You know, presuming that my PPC was successful and I've done good already, how many units do I have to push? If it's like 1,000 units, it may not be a good idea. But if it's a few hundred units, or maybe 100 or 200 units, and we know the volume is pretty good, then this may be a good place to go.
Yeah, general rule of thumb, I'm guessing that was a question. I'll answer it in just 10 seconds. General rule of thumb, whatever that top seller is doing in that spot that you're trying to take, whether it's #1, #2, #3, whatever that seller is doing in terms of number of units per day, you want to match or exceed that during your launch for a period of 5 to 10 days. We'll just say 7 days. That's the standard. So for a period of 7 days, match or exceed the sales of the spot that you're trying to take. General rule of thumb.
Okay, so general rule. And then, of course, you also want to make sure that you put in the ASIN here to see if you're indexed or not, which I don't have the ASIN available, but you would do that. If your product shows up, then great. So that is basically what we covered. And really briefly, to show you about what PPC Entourage is all about, I'm going to go into just the campaign optimization, because there's a lot of things to go over in PPC Entourage, and we do have training for that. We have free training, which is available, the fundamentals course and the blueprint series, which tells you the strategy that we use. and also some of the basic fundamental knowledge that you really should have in order to maximize your PPC profitability. So the fundamentals course is free and the blueprint series is free. But let's go over real briefly campaign optimization. Something that I am really excited about is there's two features here, and we're going to build upon this in 2018. But bulk optimization, I am a Starbucks junkie. I work from home, but I don't like to work from home because I like to get out of my home, and I do love hanging with my cat, but I love to go to Starbucks and work from Starbucks. And I was spending hours doing this, and now you can do it in 5 minutes. So I'm really passionate about sharing this with you guys. The biggest one I think is search term optimization in bulk. So basically, you're looking at all of your campaigns all at once, and all you have to do is select all of the campaigns here and select all of the ad groups here. And then we have these preset models. So we're going to find all of the search terms across all of your campaigns and all of your ad groups that have no revenue and at least 5 clicks. So 5 people clicked on this search term and nobody purchased. That's something that I'm interested in knowing about and optimizing, and I want to do it as fast as possible. And by the way, guys, this works fantastically well on automatic campaigns because those are all search terms. You can't optimize on a keyword basis on an automatic campaign. So you're finding the search terms. I don't have a lot of data here, and there's no active campaigns, so I can't exactly show you the results. But you would click on apply. Everything would show up here. And then in one click of a button, you would press optimize, and it would go into all of the individual ad groups, and it would optimize on an ad group basis, an ad group level, which would save you like dozens and dozens of hours and hopefully a lot of money, because if you're not optimizing, especially you haven't done it in a while, you're going to find a lot of junk, a lot of weeds in your garden. And the last thing I want to share with you guys, I know time is running out here. The last thing I want to share with you guys is Autopilot Mode. Autopilot Mode is what we recommend doing after you've become a little bit more seasoned with PPC and you've done your bulk edits, you've done your individual campaign edits, optimizations. Now we have Autopilot Mode, which basically sets a target ACOS and takes action. Every night we like dig into your campaigns and take the actions that you set right over here. And we have basic settings and advanced settings. And also now we have automatic search term optimization, which is what I just showed you. So if there's a search term that has 5 clicks but no sales, we look at 90 days worth of data, and if it fits that criteria, we will make that optimization on your behalf. You could also put in a bunch of keywords and search terms that you want us to ignore. So this way we never ever optimize that particular search term because it's something that you obviously like. So guys, that's it. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. If you're interested in joining Entourage, then you can definitely go ahead and sign up for a free trial. You'll get access to the blueprint, the fundamentals course. And if you put in code ASCEND15, that's one phrase, ASCEND15, then you can get 15% off for the first year of Entourage. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, we do have a Facebook page too. I'm super available on that page and ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Right on. All right. Thanks,
Cool.
Mike. It's fun to do together, buddy. I had a lot of fun doing this. And thanks to everybody for joining. It was awesome to have you guys all on here and to be able to do this chat with you guys. Like I said, you can always email me or Mike with any questions that we weren't able to get to. We're going to close this down now. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Everybody have an awesome weekend.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.